Paul, listen to me. I don't even like dogs!
I'll leave. I'll just get my things now.
We could still be friends. I thought an annulment would be the easiest. You just have to sign it. I'm sorry, Paul. Paul! Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
The movie takes place after World War II ends and the transports bring survivors home. Sergeant Paul Sutton steps onto a dock with the modest wish to start a family with his wife Betty, whom he married just before his deployment. Paul's hopeful smile curdles as he scans the crowd to look for his wife. Then again, slower, careful, like maybe he just missed her in the blur of banners and bouquets. He hasn't. Men on either side are swallowed by family. He is left standing in the draft their embraces make. The welcome is loud for everyone else and silent where he's standing. He realizes Betty isn't there to greet him. He trudges to the apartment they shared before he was deployed, touches the locket that holds her photograph, and opens the door. Inside, Betty is wearing pale green lingerie, seemingly startled by Paul's arrival. She then rushes to him and pulls him into an embrace. Betty says she didn't know that Paul would be coming home today.
When I didn't see you on the dock, I thought...
I didn't know you were coming today!
It confuses him, especially since he had written to her about his return in the letters he sent almost every day during his 4-year deployment. Betty shyly admits that she stopped reading his letters because the graphic descriptions of war were too overwhelming for her. Still, she explains that she kept them all, showing Paul a trunk filled with unopened envelopes, saved but never read beyond the first few. This deeply hurts Paul, as writing those letters had been his only emotional refuge on the battlefield. Despite the pain, he suppresses his feelings and chooses to forgive, because love is all he longs for. Betty then excitedly speaks about the economic boom and proudly explains how she convinced the company Paul once worked for to hire him again. But Paul no longer wants to sell chocolates.
I don't want to go back to selling chocolate.
You've got something better.
He says that he wrote of the future he dreamed for them, a home full of children and quiet mornings, in the letters that Betty did not open. Meanwhile, Betty speaks only of money and the nicer things it buys and insists he return to selling chocolates because more money means more happiness. Paul relents and says yes to her demands as they share a passionate reunion. By dawn, Paul is back in uniform, kissing her sleeping forehead and leaving for Sacramento to continue his work as a chocolate salesman. On the train, he notices a poised yet anxious young woman wrestling with a suitcase overhead. It falls down, spewing its contents, including a framed picture of her and her father, that breaks. Being a gentleman, Paul springs up to help. They lurch with the train's sway, and he ends up awkwardly on top of her before she turns pale and vomits on his uniform. He doesn't mind, as it is an accident, and scrubs the mess in the bathroom without complaint. Back in his seat, Paul falls asleep only to be haunted by war flashbacks from his deployment. He wakes in relief that it was all a dream, but the beautiful lady is gone. He hops off in San Francisco to take a bus to Sacramento and luckily comes across the same woman again. She wonders why Paul is taking a bus to Sacramento when the train will also pass by the city. It turns out that their tickets were swapped during their encounter in the train. The woman feels bad for all the trouble she has caused Paul. But of course Paul brushes it off as it's not her fault. She introduces herself as Victoria Aragon, a graduate student heading home to her family's Napa Valley vineyard. Then 2 drunk men come in and begin harassing her.
It's my buddy Herman, and you're,
I'm not interested.
No, not after she got to know me.
Lady doesn't want to be bothered.
Paul's soldier instincts snap awake, and he wastes no time in calling them out and beating them up. This leads to the 3 men getting thrown out of the bus. Paul walks along the road towards his destination, but is surprised to find Victoria sitting with her luggage in the middle of the road.
I'm sorry about the boss. I feel terrible.
You're waiting for a ride.
No, a miracle.
Seeing that she's in tears, Paul asks what's wrong. She confesses that she's scared to go home and face her father because she got pregnant by a professor who had left her behind with no accountability.
I don't know your father, but I don't think that just because some free spirit broke up with you...
I'm pregnant.
She thinks that her father will disown her if she comes home without a husband.
Look at the positive side.
Oh, I will kill anyone who dishonors my family. If I come home this way, without a husband, he'll kill me.
So Paul wants to help her and her baby. He offers a temporary plan.
Well, how about if you do show up with a husband?
He will pretend to be her husband for a night so she can enter her home without disgrace. He does admit that he is married and insists the deception will end the next day. And Victoria, desperate and wary, accepts.
Just go blank.
You're very kind to do this for me.
And the baby. I'm doing it for the both of you.
As they approach the vineyard, the hills sit atop rolling clouds bathed in sunlight. Its beauty takes Paul's breath away, and Victoria says her family calls their land Las Nubes, means the clouds.
We call it Las Nubes. It means the clouds.
Before they enter, Paul slips a ring from a piece of chocolate onto her finger, and then his own inlay of wedding bands. Suddenly, rifle shots crack the quiet. The two seek shelter, but tension melts when Victoria sees that it's her father who is holding the gun.
Hello, Papa.
Victoria, who's this?
My husband.
Alberto, Victoria's father, erupts in furious disbelief when Victoria introduces Paul as her husband. He storms towards the house, calling out for his wife. The rest of the household and staff gather due to the racket Alberto is making. Despite that, everyone greets Victoria with cheerful hugs as she finally returns home. Following Alberto's rage, she also announces the news of her marriage to Paul. Everyone in her family is surprised by the news. Alberto's rage intensifies when he learns Paul sells chocolate for a living.
What do you do?
I sell chocolate.
You are the head of the family. Say something!
But in the household swirl, Victoria's mother Marie and grandmother Guadalupe temper the storm with hospitality, while Victoria's grandfather Don Pedro embraces the stranger outright, even praising Paul's chocolates.
It's wonderful.
Why can he never just say, I'm happy for you, Victoria. Congratulations, Victoria. Why must everything be a drama?
Victoria, he is your father.
Only with the vines he has patience.
He wants me to marry some man in Mexico I have never even met. Just because he has the right bloodlines. I'm not a horse, Mama. Everything will be fine. You'll see. Everything will be perfect.
Paul is invited to join the family dinner where Alberto interrogates him about his past.
Tell us, Mr. Sutton, where are you from?
Moline, Illinois.
And your parents?
I never knew my parents.
Oh,
I grew up in a home. I meant an orphanage.
wonderful.
When he finds out that Paul is an orphan, he sneers that a man with no past, has no future, is no fit to marry his daughter with the family's respected Mexican bloodline. Paul holds himself steady, absorbs the humiliation, thanks them for dinner, and slips outside for air. Victoria finds him in the dark and apologizes. But he seems to somewhat understand where Alberto's rage comes from.
I'm sorry.
He doesn't pull any punches, does he? When I was a kid, every night I'd climb up to the roof of the orphanage and I'd make a wish on every star I could see.
That's no reason for him to treat you that way.
And I was gonna say something, but a strange man comes into my house, tells me he's married my only daughter and I'm the last to know. Probably act the same way.
That night, their charade earns them Victoria's parents' master bedroom, though Paul chooses to sleep on the floor out of respect.
First, he comes into my house, steals my daughter. And now he takes my bed.
In a smaller room, Marie urges Alberto to at least say goodnight to the supposed newlyweds. Unable to cross his wife, Alberto barges into the master bedroom with a stiff goodnight.
May I?
One moment, Papa.
Paul scrambles to tuck himself into bed next to Victoria, but Alberto's eyes already notice the blanket on the floor. The man leaves, saying nothing more. In case anyone else comes in their room, the two decides to just sleep in the bed together. Some romantic tension starts to build up, but Paul breaks their gaze and goes to bed. Paul has another nightmare that wakes him up screaming Victoria's name. When she soothes him, the sound of bells erupts outside. Frost has come down on the vineyard like a white plague. The whole family and workers turn on many fire pipes to pull heat across the vines. Paul asks how he can help, and Alberto barks at him to stand aside. However, Victoria shows him how to use clothes similar to wings to pull and spread the heated air closer towards the grapes. He mimics her rhythm, driven by the desire to be useful, and Alberto watches from a distance. When morning burns through the fog, the vines are saved. Now Paul prepares to depart towards Sacramento.
It's better this way.
I wish you the best of luck.
Buenos días, Señor Paul.
It's the color of the grape. Toma, coche.
Don Pedro has a different plan. He takes Paul on a walk through the vineyard's history, guiding him up to a fenced hill where the very first vine was planted by their ancestor in the 16th century.
Oh, this looks like my granddaughter's.
Never noticed that.
He tells Paul that an orphan is simply a man waiting to discover his family, and that if he wishes, he may consider himself one of the Aragons.
I will show you something. This is the root I brought with me. All our vines come from this one. It's the root of our lives. Now that you are part of all this, a part of us, you are an orphan no longer.
Paul is deeply moved and accepts the warmth of the gesture. Yet he gently explains that he cannot stay until the harvest day tomorrow.
I really can't. I have commitments.
Don Pedro relents, but reveals to Paul that Alberto predicted his departure, and Victoria will be the one to pay the price.
He said you would not stay.
Who did?
Alberto.
So, to keep Victoria from getting hurt, Paul decides to stay for just one more day. Harvest arrives in Los Nubes like a holiday. Victoria's younger brother, Pedro, returns home from Stanford and greets Paul with open arms. The entire family and workers spill into the vineyard to pick the grapes, laughing and trading songs. Paul watches Alberto's efficient gestures, mirrors them, and soon slips into a playful competition that ends with both men hoisting boxes brimming with grapes at nearly the same moment. The mood swells into celebration. Musicians tune their instruments, and the women step into the great wooden vat to crush grapes with their bare feet. Victoria joins them, welcomed as a married woman, at least in the eyes of the others. The women pull Paul into the vat, urging the couple to dance together among the grapes. They drift closer, caught in a gravity far removed from the lie they are pretending. Later, soaked in juice and music, they finally kiss in private with a hunger that startles them both, only for Paul to pull away as if burned. He confesses that he loves her more than he ever expected to love anyone. But he is still a married man, and he cannot betray both Victoria and his wife.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Shocked and heartbroken, Victoria turns her face away and sobs long into the night. Paul, burdened by a pounding headache and the weight of his decision, sleeps alone on the sofa, knowing that the moral path sometimes runs straight through heartbreak. He is woken up by Pedro and Alberto arguing in the living room. Pedro thinks they should modernize their winery, and Paul suggests bank loans as a safety line during bad years. Alberto snaps, telling Paul to mind his own business. Amidst the quarrel, Alberto comments that Paul and Victoria don't seem like an actual married couple, especially now that Paul had slept on the sofa. Paul defends himself by saying that Victoria's well-being is his business because he cares about her.
Truth is, she came home because she loves her family.
I told you, stay out of our business.
Preparing to leave, Paul notices Victoria clutching her stomach in pain. He rushes to her side and offers to stay one more night to help her through the stressful quarrels with her father, but she refuses. She tells him that it was never his problem in the first place.
No one can help me. It's not your problem.
She leaves and he pursues her, but instead finds Alfredo in the barrel storage room. Alberto once again reminds Paul that he'll never acquire the winery despite marrying Victoria, which Paul responds to by questioning whether Alberto even loves his daughter. Alberto insists that he works hard because he loves his children, so Paul tells him to start showing it instead.
Why can't you just love her?
You know nothing about my daughter.
Can't you see that? How wonderful, how special she is.
Victoria overhears the argument and joins in. She doesn't understand why Alberto is so controlling or why he hates Paul so much. Alberto stands his ground, but his daughter is tired of his temper. She asks whether she should leave the family property, but Alberto says he only wants the truth. Paul is about to leave once again. Don Pedro coaxes him into drinking brandy that he made himself. They get drunk together and start to sing a romantic Latin song. Don Pedro teaches Paul the lyrics so he can serenade Victoria from below her. Window with a mariachi band.
Forever more. The heart you are talking to is Mexican. You speak to it in the language it understands.
Paul sings with a raw, cracked earnestness, his voice trembling but sincere, powerful enough to draw sleep from every room.
Amor, si me llamas amor, amor, si me llamas.
Even Alberto begins to wonder if he had been too harsh on Paul, since he now believes the man truly loves Victoria. Don Pablo says that the sign of Victoria's acceptance is if her bedroom lamp turns on, and when the last note trembles away, the window stays dark. Paul walks away in defeat, but then sees the glow after a late pause. Paul, who believes in duty even more than he believes in hope, decides to leave anyway. He ends up in the Harvest Festival the next day since the bus will be departing from the area. Meanwhile, Victoria and her family arrive for the blessing of the wine conducted by Father Couturi. She sees him and approaches with 2 glasses of wine for a toast. Alberto joins, introducing Paul to the priest as his son-in-law and announces a wedding to take place that evening. Shocked, Paul whispers to Victoria that they cannot continue this unsustainable lie, and she agrees to tell the truth herself. Before she returns to the family, he gave her his Bronze Star medal as a gift for the child she is carrying.
What did you get it for?
Courage under fire.
You are the most honorable man I have ever known.
She then walks to Alberto and confesses the pregnancy and the fact that there is no husband. While the family processes the news, Paul slips out of the celebration. He hitches a ride to Florida, where he once again falls asleep into a nightmare. In it, he and Victoria are holding hands with a child when an explosion hits, startling him awake, still in the car. He finally arrives at Betty's apartment. When he enters, he is shocked to find Betty in bed with another man. She tells Paul, not cruelly but coldly, that the life he wants is not the life she will ever want, that she has already filed annulment papers, and that he should sign them. Paul leaves with the papers in hand, dazed at first, but joy quickly returns to him as he realizes he can return to Victoria now that he is free from his marriage.
Paul! Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
He immediately hitchhikes back toward Napa, and by the time he reaches Los Nubes, it is already evening. Alberto is deep in drink with his men, brittle with wounded pride. Paul wakes him and openly asks for permission to marry Victoria, also pledging to be a father to the child she carries. Alberto angrily reminds him that he is a married man. Despite Paul showing him the annulment papers, Alberto still demands his gun. Barehanded, Alberto tries to fight Paul, who easily dodges his blows. In the scuffle that follows, an oil lamp Alberto hurls at Paul misses and sets the edge of the vineyard on fire. The flames spread rapidly from one tree to the next, and soon the entire field is burning. Paul reacts quickly, soaking his jacket in water and trying to beat back the fire. The family and workers rush in, including Victoria, who sets aside her shock to help. As everyone struggles to save what they can, Pedro, who has joined the effort, accidentally catches his clothes on fire and panics. Amid the screams, Paul dunks cloth in a barrel, sprints into the heat, wraps Pedro in the wet fabric, and smothers the flames at his legs. Alberto, stunned at first by shock and remorse, then lurches toward the blaze until Don Pedro drags him back. In the end, the fire is too widespread to stop, engulfing the entirety of Las Uvas. The night finally burns itself out, and dawn reveals the cost without mercy. Blackened stubble where a green river once ran, smoke drifting over the chapel hill. The Aragon family and the workers weep, believing their home and legacy have vanished in a single night. They fear the ancient vine on the hilltop has turned to cinder like everything else. Seeing their grief, Paul takes it upon himself to climb the hill with a shovel and stubborn optimism. Kneeling in ash, he digs with careful hands until he lifts the blackened root of the ancient vine. Though charred and lifeless in appearance, he carries it down to Alberto and asks him to cut into it to see whether the fire reached its core. Alberto stares for a moment, then hurriedly draws his knife. He pares away a strip of burnt bark and gasps. The core is still green. That small sign of life restores hope to everyone gathered. Don Pedro cries out that Las Uvas has not ended after all. Through tears and disbelieving laughter, Alberto turns to Paul and, for the first time, sincerely thanks him, finally accepting that Paul is a good man, with a brave heart. As thanks, he cuts a living piece from the root and hands it to Paul to replant, not as hired help but his family. This symbolizes the trust that Alberto now holds for Paul to help their family restore their heritage, their land, and their livelihood. In the hush that follows the discovery, Paul takes Victoria's hand and slides a real ring onto her finger, and the family, women, men, workers who have earned the right to celebrate, cheers as the couple seal their promise with a kiss. The priests, Blessing from the day before echoes in memory. The musicians have nothing left to play. The fields are bare, and yet hope feels less like a mood than like an action. The deliberate work of planting what remains and tending it with patience until new growth rises. The movie ends with Paul, the orphan who returned from war believing he had no one and nothing except a promise he could not sustain, now getting to live the dreams that he had written in war with a new family in Los Nubes.